The parable of the workers in the vineyard. The first workers grumbled because the last were paid the same. But I showed them that my grace is a gift, not a wage. The sun beat down on the hills of Galilee, a relentless heat that made the air shimmer. I was traveling, but my mind was often on the common people I saw every day. The farmers, the fishermen, the merchants. Their lives were a cycle of hard work and scarcity, a constant struggle for survival. They lived by a simple code, a fair day's work for a fair day's pay. It was a life of contracts and expectations where every effort was measured and every reward was earned. I would often see the laborers standing in the marketplace, their faces etched with the hope of work. They were men with families to feed, with debts to pay, and their very existence depended on the mercy of a wealthy landowner. In this world, a man's worth was tied to the hours he toiled, and his reward was a direct reflection of his labor. It was a system that made sense to them, a system of human justice that was fair and predictable. If you worked from dawn until dusk, you were a success. If you worked for only an hour, you were a failure. They lived with the anxiety of the unknown, with the gnawing fear that tomorrow's bread might not be there. They had to compete for every job, to stand tall and strong to show they were worthy of the opportunity. The first to be hired were considered blessed, and those who stood in the marketplace all day, their hopes fading with the afternoon sun, were a testament to their misfortune. Their ordinary life was a relentless test of their worth, and their hearts were filled with the simple, honest conviction that they deserved every penny they earned. They believed in a God of justice, a God who rewarded the faithful and the hard-working. They believed that their blessings were a direct result of their obedience and their sacrifice. Their faith was a mirror of their work ethic, a meticulous record of every good deed and every hour of service. They had a clear and simple ledger in their minds. On one side was their effort, and on the other side was my reward. They were prepared to present this ledger to me, confident that their righteousness would be clear to all. I began to tell them a story, a familiar tale of a landowner and his vineyard. I spoke of a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire workers. The men in the crowd nodded. They knew this life. This was their ordinary life. He agreed to pay them a denarius for the day, a fair and just wage. The workers rejoiced and went to the vineyard, their hearts filled with gratitude. The crack had not yet appeared. The world was as it should be. Then at the third hour, the sixth and the ninth hour, the landowner went out and hired more men. They were not as fortunate as the first group. They had stood idle, their hope dimming with every passing hour. He saw their desperation, and with a simple act of compassion he hired them, saying, "I will pay you what is right." The crowd understood. This was an act of mercy, a common decency. They knew that these men would be paid a fair wage for the hours they worked, and they would be grateful for the chance. The contract was not as specific, but the unwritten law of justice was clear. But then, at the 11th hour, just an hour before sunset, the landowner went out one last time. He saw men still standing there, their heads bowed in defeat. Their families would go hungry tonight. He looked at them not as workers, but as men, and he asked a question that would begin to crack the foundation of their understanding. "Why have you been standing here idle all day?" They answered, "Because no one has hired us." The landowner said, "You also go into the vineyard." The crowd in front of me stirred. This was not a fair deal. This was not the way of the world. The men who had worked all day, their backs aching and their hands calloused, would be paid for a full day's work. But these men who had only worked for 1 hour would surely receive a fraction of the wage. The system of human justice, the simple ledger of effort and reward, was beginning to crumble. They expected a logical, predictable outcome, but I was about to show them a reality that transcended all logic. The crack was not a sudden burst, but a slow, persistent break in their understanding. They were about to learn that my kingdom did not operate on their terms. It did not operate on the rules of the marketplace. It operated on the rules of grace. The story continued, and the setting sun cast long shadows over the vineyard. The time had come to pay the workers. The landowner's steward began to call them, and he did something that was completely contrary to their expectations. He called the last to be hired, the men who had only worked for a single hour, and he paid them a full denarius. The grumbling began. The men who had worked from the first hour, who had endured the heat and the hard labor, watched in disbelief. They whispered among themselves, their faces a mixture of confusion and righteous anger. They had a right to be angry, didn't they? This was a betrayal of their contract, a violation of the very principles of fairness and justice they had lived by their whole lives. Then, the steward called them forward, the first to be hired. They expected to be paid more, much more. They had worked all day, from the scorching sun of the morning to the cool shadows of the evening. They had earned their reward. They had lived up to their end of the bargain. Their hearts were filled with a sense of entitlement, a proud confidence that their hard work would be justly rewarded. Their breaking point was not a moment of despair, but a moment of a profound, painful shock. The steward paid them their agreed-upon wage, a single denarius. The men exploded. They could not contain their frustration. "These last worked only 1 hour," they complained to the landowner, "and you have made them equal to us who have borne the burden of the day and the scorching heat." Their words were not just about money, they were about worth. They felt their effort, their sacrifice, their very identity had been devalued. They had believed in a simple system of justice, and now that system had been shattered. The breaking point was a moment of profound existential crisis. They had worked their whole lives to earn a place in my kingdom, only to find that others who had done so little were given the same place. Their faith, which had been built on a foundation of works, had been shaken to its core. They had come to the end of their understanding, and they were faced with a truth that was both beautiful and terrifying. The kingdom of heaven was not a contract. It was a gift. The landowner, my father, turned to one of the men and spoke a gentle yet powerful truth. "Friend, I am doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for a denarius? Take what belongs to you and go. I choose to give to this last man the same as I give to you." His words were not a rebuke. They were an invitation to a different way of thinking. The man had a choice. He could cling to his human understanding of justice, or he could embrace my divine generosity. The shift was a change in perspective. The man was still angry, still grumbling. He was focused on the injustice of the situation, on the inequality of the reward. He had been so focused on what others had received that he had forgotten to be grateful for what he had. He had received a fair wage, the very wage he had agreed to, but his heart was filled with envy and resentment. I looked at him and said the words that would define the entire parable. "Is it not lawful for me to do what I wish with what is my own? Or is your eye envious because I am generous?" This was the core of the shift. The men had been operating from a place of scarcity, of competition, of comparison. They believed that if another person received a blessing, it somehow diminished their own. They had not understood that my generosity was not a limited resource. My grace was not a finite commodity. It was an overflowing well, a boundless sea of love that was available to all who would receive it. The others had received a wage. The last had received grace. The first were paid what they had earned. The last were given what they had not. The man had a choice to make. He could continue to grumble, to cling to his righteous anger, or he could let go of his envy and embrace the boundless generosity of my Father. The shift was a movement from a heart of justice to a heart of grace, from a mindset of what is earned to a mindset of what is given. The last man was not a threat to the first man's reward. He was a testament to my Father's boundless love. The purpose of this parable was to reveal the true nature of my kingdom. The world operates on a system of wages, where every blessing is earned and every reward is deserved. But my kingdom operates on a system of grace, where every blessing is a gift and every reward is a testament to my love. I did not tell this story to prove a point about fairness. I told it to reveal a profound and radical truth about who I am. The laborers who worked all day had a right to their wage. They had a contract and they had fulfilled it. But they had not understood that their contract was with a Father who was more generous than they could ever imagine. They had not understood that they were not just laborers, they were also children. They were so focused on the wage that they missed the Father's heart. The man who came at the 11th hour had no claim to a denarius. He had not earned it. He had not worked for it. He was a man who had received a gift, a blessing that he had not deserved. And in his joy and his gratitude, he became a living testament to the truth of my grace. He was a symbol of every soul that comes to me at the last moment, every sinner who repents on their deathbed, every person who has lived a life of struggle and despair, only to find salvation in my arms. I ended the parable with a phrase that would challenge their very notion of justice. So the last will be first, and the first last. The statement was not a rebuke, but a reordering of their priorities. It was not about devaluing the hard work of the first. It was about elevating the boundless grace that was given to the last. My purpose was to show them that my kingdom is not a hierarchy of merit, but a family of love. No one is more loved than another. No one is more blessed than another. The only difference is in the heart that receives. This parable continues to challenge the hearts of those who hear it, a profound and timeless reminder that my grace is a gift, not a wage. You, like the workers in the vineyard, have a ledger in your own mind. You keep track of your good deeds, your sacrifices, your hours of service. You believe that your blessings are a direct result of your worth, and in doing so, you are in danger of becoming like the first workers, grumbling and resentful, unable to receive the boundless generosity that I have for you. My kingdom is not a competition. My love is not a prize to be won. You are not a worker in a field. You are a child in my house. You do not need to earn your place at my table. It has already been set for you. The only thing you need to do is to receive it with gratitude. The first will be last, not because they are less worthy, but because they have not yet understood the simple, beautiful truth that my grace is more than enough. And the last will be first, not because they have earned it, but because they have received it with a grateful heart. Let this parable be a mirror for your own heart. Release your need for a wage, for a sense of entitlement. Embrace the simple, beautiful truth that my grace is a gift. Come to me, and you will find a place in a kingdom that is built not on human justice, but on divine love. The story of the workers in the vineyard challenges our idea of fairness, doesn't it? It makes us question what we truly deserve versus the radical generosity of God's grace. I want to hear your thoughts. What part of this parable resonates most with you? Is it the feeling of being a first worker, who's done all the hard work, or are you like the last worker who feels incredibly grateful for a gift you didn't earn? Share your perspective in the comments below. Let's continue this conversation. And if this story has touched your heart today, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the Bible, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message of grace. My friends, I see your hearts. Many of you feel like the first workers in the vineyard. You've carried the burden and the heat of the day, toiled faithfully for what you believed was a fair wage. You've looked on as others, who came late, received the same as you, and I know in that moment, a whisper of injustice enters your mind. You may wonder if your long years of commitment and sacrifice were truly worth it. But I ask you to look past the coin in your hand and look to the heart of the Master. Did I not give you what was agreed upon? Did I not stand by my promise? My kingdom's economy isn't based on what you deserve, but on what I am able to give. It is a world where the last can be first and the first can be blessed not by a wage, but by a grace that goes far beyond any human-made contract. Don't let comparison steal your joy. The blessing I gave to another does not take away from the blessing I have given to you. Instead of viewing the last worker as competition, see him as a witness to my boundless generosity. His undeserved gift is a mirror reflecting the same unconditional love I have for you. Your reward is not merely the coin, but my relationship with you. So I invite you to a shift in perspective. To the first who came, remember my calling to you at the break of day. To the one who feels they have done all the right things, do you truly wish to be paid only for your merit? Is it not a deeper joy to live in the abundance of grace, where what I give is not just equal but overflowing? Let's talk about this. I want to hear your deepest thoughts in the comments below. What is the hardest part about accepting grace when you feel you've worked so hard for it? What does it truly mean to you to live in a world where everyone is paid the same? If this message has touched you today, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear this story of hope.